Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a series that, honestly, I've been putting off for far too long. I've got my buddy Clyde here today,
Yo,
and today I wanted to talk about the American Navy and what to sort of expect with if you're a new player picking it, and what sort of gameplay and different things you're going to get from picking the Americans as your first nation. Now, I've already done this series for rank 1 and rank 2 of all of the nation's aircraft. I know new nations have been put into the game since I've done that. I do plan on doing those nations just to kind of touch base and get everything situated with there. But since really my favorite form of game in this has been boats lately, so I figured I might as well just do the boats right now. So, introduction to the American Navy. Sponsored by, can I please get the hell out of the Mediterranean? I'm so sick and tired of this place smelling like piss, and I'll have the ham.
and spawn campers are also trash.
Oh, yeah. Fucking A. But anyway, so the first boat you're going to get when you pick the Americans is the Higgins 81-foot PT-6. So, honestly, it's kind of the runt of the litter in terms of the reserve boats. Now, the fact that you can have two 50 cals on the top here that you're going to be able to fire pretty much in a 360-degree angle, except kind of like towards the rear where that mast is sort of the way here. And with the 250 cals, obviously you can't really shoot one gun over the other. So the first thing you're going to want to know when it comes to dealing with other boats is you're going to want to aim at different slots in the sort of like the components of the boat. So you've got like your frontal compartment that's got your pumps, and you've got your bridge, your radio station, engines, various different ammo racks, fuel tanks, and torpedo tubes. Now, in terms of performance of this boat against the others, you're going to be slower than the Russians and the Germans, but at the same time, you're not that far behind them. That's one thing that a lot of the low-tier PT boats have in common, is their insane amount of speed. The second part you're going to want to know is about the torpedoes, specifically American torpedoes. The American torpedoes have this sort of weird thing about them that they just seem to hit everything.
At least when I shoot them.
Yeah, I've had zero luck with torpedoes. It always seems like I'm either launching them way too early and they just see them coming from a mile away. Now, looking at the torpedoes themselves inside the modifications, the biggest thing you're going to want out of them is you need to know your depth stroke and your arming distance. So your arming distance basically is how far the torpedo has to go before it goes boom. And that's going to be a whopping 50 meters. Now, I'm pretty sure these are the exact same torpedoes on all of the other rank 1 boats here, so if we cover the torpedoes here, you're basically good for the other boats. I'm going to turn it to Clyde here in a little bit just to kind of explain to you guys how the torpedoes sort of work in the game.
Alright, so in game we've got, you push the L1 and R1 button at the same time. You can individually aim a torpedo by holding down L1 and then R2 to fire. Now, one really nice thing about the reserve boat for the Americans, especially if you like torpedoes, the torpedoes on that boat drop out the back and go underneath your craft in a straight line. So this boat's really easy to line up on target. I generally don't even use the lead reticle for the torpedoes. I just kind of guess and fire. Another thing about the American boat that's really nice in accordance to, say, maybe the Russians. The Russian boats, you can only shoot straight ahead at a 45-degree angle. You can't shoot straight off the bow with the way their with the way their machine guns are set up. The Americans can shoot both dead ahead and almost dead behind you. That try to test. Nope, that tower does not get in the way on the American reserve boat. It is just in the middle of the two, and that it makes this a very, very rounded reserve boat to start with if you are starting in any class. It's very easy to use.
It's also pretty nice the fact that you've got 2 guns instead of 1 because, you know, just especially if you're firing forward, that's just double the firepower because most of the reserve boats have a 50 cal in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a Russian 50 cal or the German 15 millimeter. It's also probably, I'd say, second best to the Germans just because the Germans don't have to reload. They just have that 600 round belt that you only have to really reload if it overheats. That could be a reason why they kill you all the time, Clyde, if you didn't know that.
That's very true.
Clyde, Clyde has a problem with LS3s, so I like to give him a hard time with it.
That boat's cheating.
That boat's cheating. But in terms of actually having 2 guns on there too, it's actually not that bad of an anti-aircraft sort of defense, but it's still only 2 guns that you control. You do control both at the same time, so really nothing can be done in terms of letting your AI take control. It's basically just use your 50 cals to just spam as much lead as aircraft as physically possible.
BF-110s don't like to die.
Yeah, BF-110s do not like to die. And of course, with it being a reserve boat, it's rank 1.0. You get 3 spawns with it, so if it's your only boat in your lineup, hey, there you go. It's the only boat you get, but you get 3 of them. So one other thing you need to know is that you do jump an entire battle ranking. Now, normally it's like 1.0, 1.3, 1.7. You jump straight to 1.7. Now, granted, 1.7 compared to the reserve boat isn't exactly that bad, but if you're going down the torpedo line, I guess you could say, you go to the Elko 77 foot, which is the first boat here, I would say, that sort of defines the American torpedo boat, which is complete spammability. Getting into the test sail here of it. It's still the same torpedoes, you just get 4 of them. More than likely, you're going to want to kind of shoot multiple torpedoes at one target. The 50 cals in themselves, you do get 4 of them inside 2 turrets. Again, there's no AI controlled gunners at all, but you basically just doubled your firepower. The downside to this is that because the bridge is right in front of the turrets, there is no way to aim directly forward in this craft. It's actually about to a 30-degree angle to the left or the right, where the actual guns can start to aim forward.
Also, if I can add on the torpedoes on this boat, they are angled at a 45 degree, so it's not an ideal boat to just dump all 4 torpedoes by holding L1 and R1 without your aim reticle on. They will go in 2 separate directions. They do not straighten out. That's a very wide shot. If you've got to shoot 2 guys on on 2 sides of an island, great. But on this boat specifically, I would always suggest using the aim reticle and leading your targets and trying to get them coming out from behind cover before they can't see you coming. This boat does have a lot of in common with the Russian boat and the fact that it can't really shoot dead ahead with the machine guns. They have to be off at a 45 almost from the bow.
I guess one other thing about the torpedoes for this boat, and I know we're talking a lot about the torpedoes, but it being a torpedo boat, you're almost sort of maining the torpedoes and using your machine guns as a reserve. They do have a specialized launcher that does send the torpedoes directly out, so there isn't that delay between shooting the torpedo backwards and then in the water and then underneath your boat heading forward. So that's one decent thing. And with a crew of only 15, unfortunately, these boats, you basically can just label all of these boats as pretty much glass cannons.
Oh yeah, they get touched, they blow up.
German 20 mils. Just eat American PT boats for breakfast. S100s looking at you. So also at 1.7, we go to the Higgins 78. Now, the Higgins 78 is the first American PT boat to actually have an anti-aircraft gun. It has one. It's got a Orlikon 20 mil in the back in terms of your primary armament that you'll be controlling. The quad-mounted... Oh, sorry, not quad-mounted. The dual-mounted double turrets with the 50 cals there. It's American 50 cals, freedom, pew pew. You're going to see this weapon system a lot. Torpedoes, pretty much the exact same as the previous boat. And basically the same concept of shooting off at an angle, kind of actually having to aim, rather than just letting your torpedoes just go on straight forward. Clyde, if you don't mind explaining to them, because this is the first American patrol boat to have an anti-aircraft gun, do you mind explaining to them how the AA system works in this game?
Sure thing. So in order to switch to your AA gun, if you want to use it yourself, you definitely have to hold down the R or L2 and then down on the D-pad. You can switch to your AA guns. If you don't feel comfortable shooting at aircraft, you can also designate your crew to do it for you. And the way you do that is you would have your main calibers, of course, which would be the 50 cals on the front, selected. You would sight in toward an aircraft, and this time you would hold L1 and push left on the D-pad. That'll sight in a plane.
And of course, when you go up into the tiers, there's various different weapon systems on one boat. You can have 40 mils, 20 mils, 50 cals, and that will, in coordinates, lead with your anti-aircraft guns, your auxiliary, and your primary. So it's always good to know where on the D-pad, even on the PlayStation 4 controller, where up being the primary, left being your auxiliary, and down being your AA. I would actually recommend just having the 20 mil, stay as an anti-aircraft role. Being in the back of the boat so far back, it's really only good at shooting up. If you tried to use this thing in an actual combat scenario, it's almost directly to the left and the right of the ship that you can aim before the gun points up to avoid shooting the captain in the back of the head. Which, no bueno. Once again, same sort of torpedoes as before as the last boat. It's the exact same stuff you're probably going to get used to already. Complete spammability with the torpedoes if you decide to turn to make the torpedoes face forward, which is always nice. So the last of the Tier 1 American torpedo boats, besides the...
Oh. Are we still in the first line?
Yeah, just with the Elco 80-foot PT-103, just the last of the American torpedo boats.
Gotcha.
Now, the main difference between this and the previous torpedo boats is the lack of torpedoes this time around. You've only gotten 2 instead of 4. They're still at that 45-degree angle. Also, the sort of weird configuration that your turrets are in make it pretty difficult to actually get the majority of your guns on target. This would be a boat that I would recommend coming back to rather than maining it, because it's the exact same armament as the Higgins 78 foot, but the biggest thing is about it is that you've got one turret behind the bridge, one turret parallel to the bridge, and then the 20 mil way in the back. So it's kind of hard to get all of your guns pointing at one target without exposing so much of your ship, which this low a tier and with this low of crew, you're going to get eaten up pretty quick.
Line 1 boats was hard. It was very hard.
Well, you know what? I'm going to let you talk about your favorite little boat, the Nasty.
The Nasty. Oh boy, we are to the
The
Nasty.
80-foot Nasty.
Now this boat is the first motor gun boat in the American lineup. We're getting away from PT boats now. The 80-foot Nasty is fast. It has a lot of guns on it, and it's got an 81mm Mark II mortar. Now, that turret can one-shot about anything at the tier we're in at this point. Generally, I use it as the auxiliary, and I'll just target boats that are off to my flank and get lucky and get them and not even realize how I did it. On the other hand, this gun also, or this boat also has the 40mm Bofo cannon. Now, the Bofo L60 Mark III is very useful when using armor penetrating rounds. You gotta ammo rack your targets though. You gotta either kill out the crew or ammo rack the target. The armor piercing round isn't gonna burn out a boat very easily. But if you want to burn stuff down, use the HEs. The HEs will take out smaller, less armored boats, and of course anything made out of wood, which at this tier most things are.
Is pretty much everything.
The thing I like the most about the Nasty is it's a very aggressive boat. It's not one that you really, I mean, you can camp with it. You can hide in little alleyways and guard a point once you've taken it. But what it's really good for is the fact that it'll do nearly 70 miles an hour on the water, has two 20mm Mark II autocannons that can be used as AA, an 81mm Mark II mortar for mid-range targets that are slightly larger, and that 40mm Bofo pretty much wrecks anything up to 3.0. Being 70 miles an hour, there's, what, 3 other boats that can catch it in the entire game?
Yeah, looking at the Russians and the German patrol boats, those are mainly going to be your 2 biggest adversaries. There are a couple of different boats that can keep up, but in terms of just the popularity of those other 2 nations, the Americans, the Russians, and the Germans are basically what I would recommend for a first-time player, just to stick to one of those nations. So
I'm
those
gonna
are
throw the Italians out there into that because I played them the other day and I was never so impressed with how fast I could kill somebody at tier 1.
really you think even with the slower firing 20 mils of the Italians,
Even with the yeah, they're more accurate. I hit my targets. I got more time to line it up. It's just me. Maybe it's that the boats are a little bit slower, which makes them a little more stable. It's something about the Italians that it worked for me.
So anyway, before we move on to the next gunboat here, I wanted to ask you one thing about the Nasty. Do you recommend using the 20 mils as your primary or using the 40 mil as a primary and kind of angling your boat?
So what I will do in that boat particularly is I will generally, depending on what I'm going up against, if I've got somebody coming in another motor gunboat, I'm using that 40 at longer ranges, out to about a kilometer to a kilometer and a half. If they get closer, they decide they're going to rush me, they're getting 20 mil pepper shots all day. I'm airing out their whole block. They're way faster to shoot. You got to shoot them in bursts for accuracy and damage, but definitely if you keep them about center mass of the enemy craft, right around where the captain is going to be at, you're going to knock out their front guns. If they're coming head on at you, they will have to turn around. When they turn around, you wipe out the rest of their crew. It's pretty much a dead shot every single time. This boat is also very good stationary. It is a stationary gun platform. You just have to be well hidden, because a plane will kill you instantly.
Yeah, basically this thing is the fastest of the glass cannons that Americans at rank 1 will have. Now, there is one thing I wanted to add before we go on here. If you end up not liking the 80mm turret that's on here, you can disable that modification and it just turns back to the 50 cal if you find that more reliable.
Generally, I've gone back and forth with that, but like I said, I use my 81mm mortar as a not quite a secondary, but as an auxiliary, and I'll mark out targets for my auxiliary crew to aim at. And generally, if I go to run away, I'll mark them real quick, and I'll turn and I'll bait them. They'll follow me because I'm in a small boat, and they think I'm running away. Well, little do they know is my mortar crew is now sighted on them, and it shoots better backward than forward. So if you're running away, that's a good savior. That, and you've got that big 40 mil on the back.
All right, speaking of that big 40 mil, the 110 SC 497. I hate this
Now,
thing.
I love it.
I
It
hate
is
it.
a big, slow, stable tank on the water.
I hate it because it kills me all the time. Whenever we play low tier boats, this is the thing that kills me the most.
Well, the thing about it is it's got a couple of big things on it. I mean, I guess it just runs 40 mil. You can run it in HE or AP. I run mine on universal, kind of go back and forth with it. My 20 millimeters, however, on that boat, I do run with the HEs, just so you get a random with the 40 and the 20s. Pretty much are just there to catch them on fire. Once this thing's upgraded, it's basically the low tier sniper rifle with high shot volume ability, a good fire rate. It's the next boat on the list that's really deadly.
The 110 does have one other pretty massive attribute to it, in that the fact that the 320mm Oerlikon cannons in the back can basically just be your dedicated AA. The 40 mil on the front is so universal for going after several different targets, especially if you have that universal belt, where it fires fast enough to where you really don't care whether you're firing AP or HE. You know, if you fire the wrong...
mass, 3 shots, they're done.
Yeah, if you fire the wrong shell, it's like, oh, well, the next one's going downrange, what, like half a second later?
Yeah, the recaliber rate on that gun is just ridiculous fast.
So yeah, this is the kind of boat that I would recommend kind of sitting more in the back, obviously being slower than the patrol boats and the 80-foot nasty. You basically don't have to get up close to anybody because you've got that 40 mil on the front. 22 crew, you're a little bit more survivable than others. Obviously, being a larger craft as well, you're kind of easier to hit. But you could be surprisingly tanky at points.
Let's be real. If we can do a good comparatization to another game, like any World War II game, I know all these nerds out in the audience are definitely fans of World War II first-person shooters if they're playing this as well. I know I am. But this boat at this tier would be considered, in my opinion, the player that runs around with the M1 Garand, just pop, 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 ping, all day long. The next boat is the comparison more to the Springfield sniper rifle, because it's a slow shooter, but
the 165 foot. This is my favorite at this battle ranking.
Hey, we agree there.
It's definitely a change of pace. The worst part about it is that, unfortunately, up close, this is probably one of the worst boats to have sailing, just because that 3-inch gun on the front, while it's absolutely devastating, it is a heck of a lot slower, and there's just times where I'm just like, God dang it, can I just rip this thing out and put the 40 mil back in? But then when you one-shot PT boats left and right with that 3-inch gun, it's kind of, you know, it earns its keep, so to speak.
It's the first boat in the American lineup that can hull break another ship as well.
And of course, if you guys don't know how hull breaking works, is that the caliber of your gun needs to be 3 times bigger than the thickness of the armor that you're shooting at on the boat. So say, for example, they have 10 millimeters thick, 10 millimeter thick armor. You need to hit them with a chemical round. So that's going to be high explosive or heat. You need to hit them with at least a 31 caliber shell. It can't equalize. It has to be 31. And that's if they have 10 millimeters of armor.
So, and then this one has the armor-piercing capped ballistic capped shell, which does do enough explosive property to break smaller boats in half.
Yeah, the thing is, though, with that is that you do have to penetrate through... I wonder if it says it. Normally it'll say it.
This one pens 123 close up and 63 at 5,000 meters.
Yeah, I'm trying to like show that the overpen is a thing where the shell could just go straight through a target and not detonate.
That is a good possibility with this round. I do have it happen a lot. It's basically something you want to use to go after a sub chaser or bigger. It's good against minesweepers. Now, if you want to haul break small boats, you can still do it in this boat. You just need to use the 76 HEVT rounds. And in order for them to be consistent in haul breaking boats, you have to have your gunner crew upgraded on your time fuse set, because this is a variable time fused round.
Also
So
great
you
against
want it to-
aircraft.
Yeah, amazing against aircraft. It will rip them in half. But you only get one shot before that aircraft kills you. And with this gun, I would just go to 20 mils and blast them with HE.
Yeah, you got 6 of them.
Mm-hmm. No. That's another thing on this boat. You're saying you don't like getting up close and personal with this boat because it's slow and undefended. I generally like when they get up close. I just always have to remember to switch to those 20 mils. Because off the back of that thing, it will just shower them with lead. They're not having a good day up close.
Yeah, your
If they
two
sneak
rear
up
mount.
on you, that's one thing.
Your two
Generally, I'll
rear
keep
mounted 20. Sorry, we keep
Yo,
talking
you're
over
good.
one another. Very professional here.
You know, it's how we play in game.
Yeah. You know, when our entire conversations are just like half sentence all the time, it's like, oh, yeah, boat left. That's
3 o'clock. Who's 3 o'clock?
Who's 3 o'clock? Is it 3 a.m. or p.m.?
I didn't have a 3 o'clock appointment. Shut up, Carl. Okay.
One major downfall to this boat is that it has two 20-round ready racks outside of the ship. So that's your first ammo stowage here, just behind the gun in front of the bridge. There is no armor defending that.
No
So-
pick boom easy.
Yeah, blowing up your ready rack is usually not good for your boat. It usually means the front part of your boat goes one way and the front part of your boat starts to sink. So, if you're any good with your shot, aim here. And if you're any good
Alright.
defending it, defend this. Defend this like with your life.
All right, buddy. Well, how do you feel about going into the premiums at the tier 1 here?
So, premiums, there's only 2. The PT 3 58-footer, really nothing to sort of talk about when it comes to this over the normal reserve boat. Usually the tier 1 premiums are going to just be the exact same as the normal boats in the tech tree. This one does have a bit of a redesigned hull. I guess you could say it's a little bit more streamlined, so I guess it could be a smaller target, but you know, dual 50 cal turrets, you know, same as the other, the torpedoes that shoot out the back. No auxiliary or AA whatsoever. The one thing I will say, though, is that I do think this boat looks a lot better. I know that's a very arbitrary sort of way to describe it, but it's there if you want it. If I really don't recommend it, though, just because it is almost exactly the same as the reserve boat. The big one you want to get is the 165-foot P66 Carmi. This is the exact same as the other 165-foot in the tech tree. The only thing is, though, is that you lose the dual-mounted 20mm turrets in the back and replace it with a second 3-inch gun. So you can almost just call this thing a baby destroyer at this point without any torpedoes. It's still as incredibly tanky as the other 165-foot in the tech tree. It still is pretty slow compared to the other boats, but you basically just doubled up your firepower in the fact that now you've got 2 of those 3-inch guns, which not very many boats at this low battle ranking are going to be competitive with you in terms of just sheer output, especially at a longer range.
Yeah, I'm currently test sailing one, seeing how long it takes to pick off a full-on destroyer. It's taken a while.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be facing off against destroyers in their 2.0 sub chasers.
No, generally not. But one, it's good to know, and two, I probably shouldn't have used the variable timed rounds. Probably should have
Well,
got the big boys
I'm
out.
actually test driving one right now, and I'm actually going to test that HVT fuses by just letting the AI gunners control the 3-inch guns just to see how effective they are against aircraft. Now, mind you, this is a bot flying this. It's going to fly in a straight line, so it's going to be a lot easier for these guns to keep track. And flying over me right now, and the fact that they've stopped firing does not bring any confidence to the fact that it's just, oh, what can the plane do to avoid you? Oh, fly above you. Also, the traverse on these guns are fucking terrible. Holy shit! They're shooting their own boat. Okay, they're shooting themselves.
I'm currently trying to shoot out a BF-110 with them right now, but I'm not letting the auto do it. I'm trying to do it myself.
All right, we'll kind of do this as a race then, I guess. Who's faster, AI or Clyde?
Oh, me.
Did you just destroy it?
Yeah, I think so. No, he's still flying. Dang it, it blew up behind him.
Oh, they just killed it.
No, AI beat me.
I mean, granted, it turned around back towards me, so I really don't think that a player in the game would actually do that. So, yeah, it's kind of a shitty comparison to do. Just let your 20 mils do it. Your 20 mils are better for AA. I guess if you want to use them, go right ahead. It is pretty satisfying to watch these 3-inch
Oh,
guns.
I switched to 20 mils and insta-deleted him.
Alright, so really quick before the end this video, because this is a sort of like dual game mode to where planes are allowed and that you can choose what planes you wish to spawn in, any recommendations for aircraft for a 2.0 lineup? Because that's the highest we can go.
Yes, I actually do. Let me return to hangar here and I will get into planes.
Get a Catalina.
Catalina is definitely something I highly recommend, especially if you're a player that's got a built flight crew. Say you haven't played with boats too much, you primarily fly. And then let's also talk about a little bit how to set up a loadout for boats. So generally, I like to have 5 slots open because you only get 2 respawns in planes and 3 respawns in boats in arcade. So I'll run 3 boats and 2 planes. Now, at the low tier, I like to mix a fighter that'll have bombing or rocket capabilities and a dive bomber or a attacker and a bomber. So generally I'll run the Catalina, the PBY 5A, because it carries a lot of bombs. It also can land on... It can also, yeah, or 1,000s. It'll carry 4 1,000-pound bombs, which at 2.0 and 1 tier, or in the first tier battle ranking, even for planes, that's a lot. Even in air battles, that'll delete bases very quickly, which is a good way to farm cash. So if you're low on cash, work on your bombers. Anyway, back to why this is a good thing on boats. It has a few things. It's got 2 options of torpedoes, and of course you carry 2 torpedoes on a bomber rather than 1 like on most attackers. Torpedoes on this game for aircraft do take a little finessing. You got to be low and slow in the bombers to line up your target. You got to really use your map to figure out how to sneak up on the target, because you are a glass flying explosion waiting to happen. You get hit with 1 good HE in this plane and you are a bomb. There's no bailing out, you just die instantly. But if you get close with your 500-pound bombs to anything in this battle tier, you don't even have to necessarily hit your target. You can just get close enough to it to capsize it. That'll get the kill too. Also, if you do have an upgraded crew, make sure that you have your gunners and your defensive armament slots upgraded to have enough of them for the plane. So if you're a tier 1 player, you don't have any crew built for this aircraft yet, it's not going to be very optimal. You're not going to have any air-to-air defense against other players.
You can also land on cap points to capture them because you are a seaplane.
Yes. Now, if we're getting into attackers, what I generally run a rank 2 plane that is still a 2.0 battle ranking. I run the TBF-1C just because I have a talisman on it and it's got a good percentage of winnings on the multiplayer. But if you were talking about rank 1, I would definitely recommend the SBD-3. Reason I recommend this plane is one, you can drop a 1,000 pound bomb and two 100 pound bombs. Now the 1,000 pound bomb will take out about any ship at this BR. The two 100 pound bombs are good for PT boats across the board and some smaller gunboats. Being that we're still talking about playing in rank 1, it also has an optional 40mm MG that you can mount under the wings, so that would bring the full load out of this plane with no bombs up to having two 50 cal machine guns in the front, add 4 on the bipod, so that's a six guns pointing straight ahead, and then you have a 7.62mm Browning machine gun dual turret off the back of this plane. Now, as long as you have one other experienced gunner upgraded in your crew, it is a good anti-air defense. If not, you can always switch seats to the rear gunner and shoot him down yourself while you're on autopilot. Another good thing about this plane is, say you take a strafing run at a small boat, disable the motor but don't quite kill it. If you pull straight up and away and switch to your rear guns, you can still finish that boat off on your way out. Really, really gets people to quit lobbies fast.
It's also quite a durable little plane. I know the rank 1 planes aren't necessarily known for the durability, but it can take a couple of hits before really anything crucial happens to it. You mainly just want to look out for that engine. Being a big fat radial engine, it'll absorb a lot of shells, and next thing you know, you wonder why you're falling out of the sky.
Just remember, it is a dive bomber too, so I always suggest going straight down on top of bigger targets.
Yeah, it also is a bit more awkward because then your AI gunners have to turn and then point up, so it's just more time you have to get on target.
Yeah.
Alrighty, what do you recommend for a fighter then?
Well, if I was going to run a fighter in Tier 1, here's a few good options. The F2A3 is at 2.7. That would be the Buffalo. That is a good option if you've gotten that far. It does carry a couple of 100-pound bombs if you need. But if I'm stuck at this battle ranking and I want to stay around 2.0, I would probably run the P36.
The C variant?
Yeah, the C variant. It doesn't have any armament, like bombs or anything like that, but it's a quick, nimble plane. It won't up-tier your battle ranking to potentially going against destroyers with rank 1 boats, like going to the 2.7 might. Another one would be the P36G.
Yeah, 2.3.
At 2.3. That's not too terrible and up tier. Again, no bombs or anything like that. I prefer to run something that has bombs or rockets. But there's really nothing in rank 1 that does that outside of the dive bombers.
I mean, you could take out the reserve boat, reserve plane, the P26A. That's got two 100-pound bombs.
Actually, no, you could also do the F3 F-2, which has a 50 cal and a 7.62. It also carries two 100-pound bombs. It's a nimble little glass cannon, but it'll get the job done.
It's a biplane. Once you drop your ordnance, you can become the anti-aircraft role that this thing was meant to, be. It is a carrier-based aircraft.
Yes, true. Also why I like the Buffalo. The F2A-1 carries two 100-pound bombs, has three 50 cals and a 7.62 for armament. So I mean, as a fighter, I probably would say the F2A-1 would be your best if you're at the end of the tier for battle ranking 1.
Yeah, 350 cals on an aircraft is going to be pretty devastating against any plane you're facing off against. Plus, also, the lack of armor on a lot of these boats means that you can just sort of be a gun runner and just strafe boats all day.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that just about covers it. We're probably... I don't know. I'll see if Sean wants to do Germany with me.
Yeah, I don't know much with Germany. Sean will probably do Germany with you.
All right, so I'm probably going to do Germany next, and hopefully I can have another guest on here. Clyde, thank you very much for helping me out today. And everybody, have fun sailing and play the objective,
Don't
goddammit.
camp spawn.
Yeah, don't camp spawn, please. Play the
My job.
objective.